What's up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of my podcast, Happy Days, with me, Callum Church. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about programming, because we are all brainwashed. Yes, we're all brainwashed, and no, I haven't gone crazy, I don't think anyways, and I'm not talking about conspiracy theories or anything like that. I'm talking about real world stuff. We are all being programmed, okay? And first of all, to start off the episode, I think it's important that we recognise that our brains are computers, essentially. That's what they are. You know, they take in and process data, store it, and, transfer it, all that sort of stuff, so that we can, experience our lives, see, feel, touch, hear, taste, the lot, really. It puts the whole sensory experience together to create life, and it also helps us to think and to navigate our consciousness, right? So if we start to think of our brains like computers, I think that helps with what I'm going to be talking about today, because they are computers, really, essentially. They are computers. And we're going to be talking about the programming that we've got running in these computers, okay? Because, as I say, we are all brainwashed. And this comes from a number of factors, and I've written down a few here. It might be, you might get brainwashed from your upbringing or your environment, the place you live. It could be your education, could be your mentors, could be your friends, or it could be the type of content you consume, your entertainment, We're programmed by all of these, They're called television programs for a reason, right? I don't actually believe in that. It's just something people say. But, they are programs, essentially. They do program your thinking in one way or another. They do condition you to think in a certain way. If you go and think of it this way, if you go and go running around in the Sahara, or actually that's a bad analogy. If we go running up a mountain for a few months, your body becomes conditioned to deal with the low oxygen air, right? And if you were to go running down on the beach, let's say it's at sea level, you'd be a lot better at running, right? Because you need less oxygen to be able to run. That's science, right? That's biology. It's the same with our brains. If our brains are, running up a mountain, let's say, obviously this is metaphorically, but if our brains are running up a mountain, they're going to perform much better at sea level. So it's you've got to be thinking about the factors which affect your programming, which affect your brains. Is your upbringing, is that up in the mountains, or is that at sea level? Is your environment, is it the kind of environment that's up the mountains, or is it the kind of environment that's down at sea level? Education. Did you get a tip-top education? I believe that the education system in the UK has failed nearly everyone. And I have my own ideas about education, but that's not for now. Maybe that'll come up in a guest episode where, we all rant about the education system and how it doesn't suit us for future life. But anyways, mentors. What are your mentors? Do you even have any mentors at all? And are they up in the mountains, or are they at sea level? Friends. Are they mountain friends, or are they sea level friends? And entertainment. Is it meaningful stuff you're watching, or is it a load of rubbish which is gonna not aid you in any way? And before I carry on with the rest of the episode, I'm just saying that, of course, it's fine to watch programs and chill out and feel entertained, but in regulation, right? You can't. If you sit watching The Simpsons all day, that's not going to do your intellect much good, is it? You know what I mean? So that's what I'm talking about here. And moving on with the podcast, 99% of our thoughts are other people's thoughts. Okay? Let that sink in for a moment. 99% of your thoughts are other people's thoughts. What the bloody hell am I talking about here? Because we're all individuals, right? Yes, of course, but we fall into the trap of regurgitating things. Me talking about the TV programs being called programs for a reason, that's something someone else has said. That's not actually authentically coming from myself. That's someone else's thought, which has been given to me. They either they've said it, or I've consumed it via online content or something, and I've regurgitated it. That's not my actual thought. A lot of this in the episode is actually just stuff that I've spoken about with other people. A lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about today has stemmed from a conversation I had yesterday over a coffee with a mentor of mine. So it's important that we remember this, and it's important that we ask ourselves these questions. What is truly you? You know, who are you? What's your authentic self? This has been something which I've been considering recently, especially after the conversation I had yesterday. What is my authentic self? Because at the moment I am in search of deeper purpose, deeper direction, deeper meaning, I suppose you could say. I think when I look at myself, I think I have high potential, you know, and that's not me being egotistical. That's not me being arrogant. You know, I believe in myself essentially. But where am I going to apply that? You know, where am I going to apply the potential which I believe I have? That's the question I'm asking myself at the moment. You know, I say my purpose is to help people. Of course, I've run this podcast because of it. I want to help people, but that's very vague. You know, what's my business plan? You know, what's the structure for the legacy I'm going to build? You know, what is the legacy I want to leave behind? You know, this is stuff which I'm thinking about, and ultimately, I'm in search of my true, authentic self. I believe I'm very authentic as a person already, and I pride myself on that. But what is my true, authentic direction and purpose? What was I put on this planet to achieve and do in my lifetime? Because we all are given these things to achieve and do, but a lot of the time people don't fulfill that. You know, a lot of the time people are too busy regurgitating other people's thoughts before they actually allow themselves to, you know, create their own thoughts and create their own legacy. You know, are we regurgitating other people's legacies, or are we going to go ahead and build our own? You know, I've had enough of regurgitating legacies. I want to build my own. You know, so that's sort of where I'm at the moment, and it's important that we do think about these things, right? Because if we truly want to live a life that's happy and fulfilled, then it's got to be an authentic life, right? It's got to be, you know, from us, from the core, you know. And we can't do that if we are running off of programming the whole time, you know, other people's programming anyway. Sometimes we got to dip into the raw power of our own computing, you know. But hey, programs aren't always bad, right? Programs aren't always bad because they help you get there, right? They do help you get there. But what programs are you running? You know, what programs are you running? Are you running Windows 12 or are you running Windows XP? You know, what kind of programming are you at? And how are you managing the factors which I mentioned at the start of the podcast? Because these will determine what kind of programming you're running. You know, whether, like I said earlier about the peak of the mountain or at the sea level. You know, what kind of program are you running? Are you running Windows XP or are you running Windows 12? You know, so upbringing. What kind of upbringing did you have? You know, what sort of ideologies and, you know, thoughts were programmed into you from birth? The person I was speaking to yesterday actually said that he grew up in a household that was very money driven, you know, and authentically, when he's true to himself, he is not a money driven person. You know, he's driven in other ways, you know, other pieces of value, and money isn't always the center of everything, center of living, center of being. And I agree with that, you know. Anyway, you know, he's felt the need to somewhat detach himself from his upbringing and detach himself from, I mean that's that sort of way of thinking and that ideology and, you know, that idea around what money is and being money driven. There's nothing wrong with being money driven, but it just depends what you want, really. Do you want Windows 12 or do you want Windows XP? You know, environment. What kind of environment are you in? You know, are you staying in your hometown or are you going to push the boundaries and, you know, move to a big city or something? Feel inspired. I was saying yesterday actually that I took a trip up to London the other day for the first time in a little while, and I was walking from London Bridge up to Shoreditch, right? And if anyone knows London well, that walk up there's lots of really tall buildings, you know, lots of really impressive architecture, right? And I can't help but feel inspired by these things, right? Because I'm looking at these buildings and I'm thinking, wow, that must have cost millions and millions and millions of pounds to be able to just construct these buildings. And then, even then, you've got all these businesses inside these buildings that are turning over even more money. And it's just, I find that quite inspiring, you know, because someone has been there and done that and they've left that building behind, you know. And I don't see those buildings from where I live right now, you know. So I wonder whether sometimes the fish outgrows the pond, right? I'll talk about that later in the podcast anyways. Education. You know, obviously I have my own ideas about the education system. What programming did your teachers put into you at an early age, or in those important years where you're growing up and going through the school system? You know, what programming did they leave you? Because I find it funny. Teachers are supposed to help us achieve our full potential, right? But do they actually really do that? You know, let's say someone's potential is to go out there and make a hell of a ton of money. You know, maybe it might be. Maybe they will grow up to become a serious entrepreneur. You know, what are those teachers, you know, programming into those kids though? You know, because if that teacher is not earning a hell of a lot of money and they're telling the kid what to do, they're telling the kid, you know, they're downloading the programming which they have, right? They're downloading the programming which the teacher has into the kid. So is that not going to somewhat stunt the growth of that kid? You know, I think it's important we think about these things and talk about these things. It's important that we think about the programming which we have, because are we stunting our own growth by allowing other people to download certain programs into us, you know? And is it good programming or bad programming? Is it Windows 12 or Windows XP? I mean, the teachers probably has Windows XP. No offense to the teachers out there, you know, but have the teachers, you know, fulfilled their true potential? That's for them to make up, but some people, I believe, are made for more than that. So we've got to be careful what kind of programming we're running in these kids, right? Mentors. What kind of mentors do you have? Are you connecting and talking with people that have been there, done that, and they're living the life that you want to live? That's something I'm thinking about right now, you know? The easiest way to predict your future is by looking at your 5 closest friends, right? I'd go so far to say that the easiest way to predict your future is by looking at the 5 closest factors. You know, I've spoken about upbringing, environment, education, and mentors so far. Friends is the next one. And then entertainment's after that. You know, content, I suppose, would be a better way of phrasing that. These factors are all programming us. Every single one of them. So, if we take care of what program we're running, that's the easiest way to predict your future, right? Because a computer can run Windows 12, or a computer can run Windows XP. You know, every computer has every modern computer, anyways, has the potential to run at the highest programming and run at the very top, right? At the same time, though, it can use a portion of its potential and run at Windows XP quite happily. You know. And if that computer wants to run at that level, that's fine, because it can do that. But you're missing out on the top echelon of potential, right? Do you know what I'm saying now? So we've got to think about how this is affecting us. And I know I keep saying that, but it's so important, right? It's so important, because if you want to be successful and if you want to, you know, achieve your maximum potential, you've got to think about these things. You really do. Because the easiest way to predict your future is by looking at your 5 closest friends. The easiest way to predict your future is by looking at the 5 closest factors which are affecting your life. Upbringing, education, environment, mentors, friends, content, programming. The lot. So are they limiting you? Or are they helping you to grow? You know? Have you outgrown the pond? Like I was saying earlier. You know, because a fish can only grow as big as its environment. Right? So, are you in a big enough pond? You know, are you in a pond which is challenging you and helping you to grow even bigger, or are you stuck at the same sort of size and not really going in any direction with your growth? You know, maybe it might be time to transfer into the bigger pond, you know, or into the lake. You know, maybe that's the big city. Maybe that's connecting with a better mentor. Maybe that's finding better friends. Maybe that's educating yourself better. You know, reprogramming yourself. Maybe that's consuming the right type of content. You know? Something to think about. And then after that, Time to hit the oceans, right? Time to grow even bigger. We've got so much potential. Do you know how big goldfish can grow, by the way? It's a total tangent. Well, no, it's not really. It's still related. But do you know how big goldfish can grow if they're in the right environment? Massive. Massive. Have you ever seen a koi? Because you get tiny little goldfish kois, right, that live in a tiny little tank and they just float around as little things and they do their thing. And then sometimes you go to these fancy hotels or you go to, like parks, right, and that sort of thing. And there's big tanks or big lakes or big ponds or whatever, and they're huge. They're huge. They're the same. They're exactly the same, but the environment affects them so much, So how big are you going to grow? What kind of koi do you want to be, right? Do you want to be a goldfish or do you want to be a big boy lake dweller? You know what I mean? That's what we've got to think about. And we do need to think about these things because they can be holding us back. So that's all that I have for today's episode. I do truly hope that you did enjoy it, as always. If you did, please consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts because it truly does help the show. Also, let me know your feedback. Connect with me. I'd love to connect with some of you guys and have more of these intellectual conversations because I think that by talking about these things and getting at that higher level of thinking and programming can really help us, right? So that's all that I have for today's episode. I do truly hope that you did enjoy it, as always, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. So there you go. That's the end of the show. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe on your podcasting app of choice so you can download and listen as each episode is released. If this episode helped you in any way, tell your friends, tell your family, maybe even leave a cheeky review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show. But that's all for now. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next episode, released shortly. Take care.